Hi guys, I hope you're well and welcome to episode 177 of the James Layton Fitness Podcast. Now within this specific episode, we're going to be discussing 5 ways to help manage hunger more effectively within the context of a fat loss phase. I'd argue there's 2 key reasons why people stop and potentially give up or they don't achieve their fat loss goals. The biggest reason is lack of results. I think we all agree that's the biggest reason people give up and basically just don't achieve their fat loss goals. But the second reason can be not being able to manage hunger effectively within a fat loss phase. When following a diet or exercise program, it's really important to note that some hunger is perfectly normal, just because when you're in a calorie deficit over a prolonged period of time, there's always going to be some hunger, and it's that hunger that often derails people. It causes people to binge, again give up, or just have these yo-yo cycles where they're good for a number of days, then they'll binge, then they'll be good for a period of time, then they'll binge again, and then the cycle just continues. So in this specific podcast, I'm going to discuss 5 ways to help manage hunger more effectively within the context of a fat loss phase, and these are tactics that I apply myself personally, but also tell my coaching clients exactly these 5 things as well. So you're getting an inside look with some of the things I teach my coaching clients. So without further ado, let's get stuck into these 5 ways to help manage hunger more effectively within a fat loss phase. The biggest tip is to not actually cut out some of your favorite foods in the first place. As mentioned so many times before, the key with fat loss is creating that calorie deficit. And therefore, within those daily calories, there's no reason why you still can't include a small amount of some of your favorite foods in moderation. The real key is the dosage. Being able to have some of these favorite foods in moderation. As long as these foods, some processed food for example, as long as it's not dominating your diet, then there's absolutely no reason why you can't have approximately 10-20% of your intake from whatever food you want, a little bit of processed food, and then 80-90% from whole food. And by doing so, you'll still be, as long as you're within your calorie targets, as long as you can do that, then you're going to be creating a calorie deficit and even fat loss, and you'll still achieve great results. So the real key is creating that calorie deficit, allowing a little bit of processed food in moderation, but again, as long as you're within those calorie targets and those foods aren't dominating the diet, i.e. you're still getting in 80-90% of your from whole food, you're still going to be meeting your micronutrient requirements as well. So that's the first tip. Don't cut out those foods unnecessarily, because what typically happens is people do cut out some of their favorite foods, and then they're going to be more inclined to binge and then go off the rails when they are extremely hungry. So by having some of your favorite foods in moderation, it helps to keep hunger at bay. It helps to keep cravings at bay. Now, the next tip is what I apply myself personally. This is what a lot of my coaching clients do, and that's moving more of your calories later in the day. Again, with regards to fat loss, it's all about creating that calorie deficit, and therefore it doesn't actually matter where you're consuming your calories throughout the day. If it comes in the morning, the evening, it does not matter, as long as at the end of the day you're creating a calorie deficit need for fat loss. Now, most people typically are more hungry in the evenings and less hungry in the mornings, and therefore because of that, why not move more of your calories later in the day when you actually are more hungry? And that's a great tactic to really blunt hunger in the evenings, because most people typically, that's when the cravings start arising, is late in the evening or early evening. So by having most of your calories later in the day, it plays almost a little bit of a trick on yourself, because you're having more food, but because you've eaten less earlier in the day, you should still be within your calorie targets, or that's what you should be trying to do. And if you can do that, then again, you'll be creating that calorie deficit need for fat loss, but it's a great way to minimize hunger. Next tip is to consume sufficient protein. Protein, if you didn't know already, is the most satiating of all the macronutrients, and therefore just by consuming sufficient protein alone will really help to keep cravings and hunger at bay. So I would suggest consuming 2 to 2.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight for lean individuals. So for males, approximately 15% body fat or lower, and females approximately 20% body fat or lower. If you're above those body fat percentage figures, I would suggest setting your protein target based upon your goal weight. So for example, let's say if you're 80 kilograms, but your goal weight is 60 kilograms, set your protein target based upon your goal weight. So 2 to 2.5 grams a kilogram, 2 to 2.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight for that goal body weight of 60 kilograms, and then protein will be set correctly for you, because otherwise protein will come out too high if you start setting protein against your current weight if you're above those body fat percentage figures. So that alone will make a huge difference. So those of you who have kind of bumped up your protein in the past, you'll notice that you're much more satiated having sufficient protein. It works tremendously well. Now the next tip is to focus on foods that typically have more volume. So this mainly is having whole food the majority of the time. The reason why is, again, there's more volume and therefore you can have more of it without those foods making a big dent into your calorie target. So typically whole food this applies to, and that's why if you just had, say, 100% of your intake from whole food, you'd be hungry all the time, because again, these foods aren't particularly satiating. So focus mainly on whole food, more volume, and that's going to help keep hunger at bay. The next tip is to add as many fibrous vegetables within every single meal. Now, the great thing about fibrous vegetables, not only are they high in fiber, but also fiber will keep you fuller for longer, but also you can have a lot of them on your plate without making a big dent into your calorie targets. And that really does help massively, not only psychologically, just seeing a big full plate of food, but also the hunger. But again, you're not making a big dent into your calorie targets by filling your plate with a lot of fibrous vegetables. So thank you very much for listening. If you're still yet to subscribe to the podcast, please do so, miss an episode, and I'll look forward to speaking to you next week. Thank you very much.